right. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the ItCast Real Talk on Sex. I am your host, Nika Sherelle. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. This episode is brought to you by the House of Sherelle and Trigger Happy Toys. Please check out the work that is being done at triggerhappytoys.com and the House of Sherelle, which you can find at our site. This month, we have some awesome upcoming events. On May 27th, we are doing Releasing Sexual Shame, A Pathway to Freedom. I'm going to be leading that online virtually from 1 to 4 p.m. And you can find that information on the Eventbrite QR code that's up there in the corner. We also have the month of June. June is National Pride Month. So there's going to be a number of celebrations and amazing things out there. I want to make sure that no matter where you are, you're keeping your eye out for the festivities. And if you are local to the San Francisco Bay Area, Pride Weekend is June 23rd through the 25th. There is the Trans March on the 23rd, Pink Saturday and the Dyke March on the 24th, and the Pride Parade official on the 25th. Definitely find us, catch us. We'll be there in the parade and vending as well. So look forward to seeing you. On July 16th, I will also be doing the Releasing Sexual Shame workshop with Ethology Collective. That will be both online and in person. So if you would like to come, spend some time with me and really get deep into the personal, intimate growth space, I would love to have you there. And as always, I'm grateful for being able to provide this work. Check out our weekly Freedom Support Group, all online, Sundays at 12 p.m. Pacific, noon to 1. And then that is also hosted with Ethology Collective and the House of Sherelle. We have our Sunday brunch at Jolene's SF, which is an amazing burlesque variety show, hoopla with a breakfast buffet and bacon. Anybody who knows me knows I love bacon. So please go check it out. It's amazing. We always love to have those partnerships. If you would like to have one-on-one coaching with me, visit my Linktree in the Calendly to book a free connection session so that I can know how to best serve you. Ask us anything. We know you're out there. We know you're watching. Put your questions in the chat. Put your comments in the chat. Send us stuff in advance if there's anything you want to know on the show, and we are happy to provide that. All right, you can check out our bonus content on Patreon, patreon.com/Nika Sherelle, and you got a QR code for that. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, share with your community, and now let's get to the heart of the matter. This episode is Real Talk on Childhood Innocence. Today in the booth, we have Katharine Lee. Katharine is a passionate advocate for embracing our humanity, unlocking the electromagnetic wonders of full-body coherence and loving unconditionally. With a personal history of overcoming immense adversity, she followed her inner calling to integrate spirituality, science, and sexuality, resulting in a powerfully transformative journey. Through emotional honesty, sanctified sexuality, energy cultivation, healthy living, and timeless wisdom, Katharine has experienced profound personal growth. Now, as a healing artist and psychotherapist, she guides others on their own transformative paths to lead fulfilling lives. Katharine, go. Oh, there we go. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, so good. I loved that bio.
It's you. You're the amazingness.
It sounded awesome, whoever that was. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, so glad to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're choosing to do this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many of us know the phrase, the wounded healer, and that has very much been my journey as well. So, I knew as a very young person, 6, 7, 8 years old, that I was going to have some really challenging experiences, and that I already had, but perhaps there would be more. But that I'd get to woman. I'd like to do some pretty powerful work that would be able to help others and help lots of others, hopefully. And here it is, and I'm still on my journey, and I'm still, integrating, healing, all of that awesome stuff, and in the mythic, meaning making and beauty making, and what led me here to you specifically to sexual health was having early awakening to sexual energy.
Mm.
And like many, that comes through sexual trauma. So that happened for me at a very early age, actually before I was walking and talking. Really, I was a toddler. So there was this sensitivity to those energies, and a sort of everything somehow relating to it, and kicking them up. And I remember very early having very kinky interests in things that were weird, and I couldn't tell anybody about. But it was just a compulsion to do them because it made me feel some type of way, and I liked that type of way, and it was better than many of the other states I was in, which were extreme places of like trauma experience, so debilitating anxiety and negative thinking, and later on like severe depression and other mental health challenges. And yeah, it was already affecting me, even when I was little, and made it hard to connect with others, made it hard to get my needs met because they were so mixed up inside.
Yeah.
And it wasn't recognized, no. My caretaker, my mother, she had no idea what had happened. And that's common too, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so it was very internal. I had to go internal to cope. And I
Mhm.
lived in fantasy and just my own space, since I didn't really have external sense of safety or connection. And then things sort of led me to, as things got worse, because I slipped through the cracks like a lot of people do. They don't get the support they need as children. So I slipped through a lot of cracks, and because I was very introjected about all of these things, easily missed. So things got pretty bad by the time I was a teenager, and there was suicidal ideations. There was a lot of drug and alcohol abuse, and pretty severe mental health challenge and panic disorder. And I was morbidly obese. I had started using food from an early age too, to get that safety and get that, yeah,
Emotional freedom. Yep. Yep.
all the things, the friend, the comfort, the safety, the anything to make me feel better right away, right? And yeah, so things spiraled. But the whole time I'd had this sense that sexuality is important. I can tell this is a thing, right? It's a thing. And because of all of those things I've described about how difficult it got for me, it also kept sexual relating very far away from me too. So that was a big protective bubble that also got created. So it was really hard for me to have intimate connections that were safe. And so they weren't. And so the ones I had were drug and alcohol induced, and they were not, in highest and best for anyone. Yet they were still powerful. There were still these moments. And I remember, that sort of adding to this idea that like, there's something here, because where I can go, even when the situation's not okay, but where I can go is really, really powerful
Yeah.
and beyond whatever this difficult thing is here. And yeah, and then kind of backtracking just a little bit, I was so interested in science when I was little, and I knew there was something inside of me that was really big, but religion was having a really difficult giving me like, what? Who begot whom? No, that's not it. You're not talking about this thing, right? That's so big and powerful. And I would look up at the stars, and I would get so shattered. Like, And I didn't feel small. I felt so big when that happened, and it broke me in half. It broke me because I knew I was that somehow. Um, yeah, so there were a lot of big things going on, and I just had an instinct that they're connected. I think
Yeah.
they're connected. And so far, I found that out to be completely true.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I hope we get to talk about that more today. And
Absolutely.
so I've had a lot of extreme experiences of all kinds, but sexual kinds. And later on, there were bigger things. There was rape. There were, lots of um, misguidance on my part, and seeing how none of us are educated properly. None of us had been given,
That.
the
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
thing about and understanding of our bodies. And so without that guidance, we just threw things around and we hurt each other in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sexuality. Like in that way, it is a I heard some words like sex is not a thing that we do necessarily. It's a thing that happens, like happens to our bodies, whether it's with someone else or not. Like that energy is there, that self is there. And it
Yeah.
actually doesn't it doesn't take shape or form or meaning until you get older, but
Mhm.
as human creatures, it's there operating in the background.
Mhm.
So I love the way that you're creating this conversation where like it is powerful and
Mhm.
it does mean something, especially in the way that it has the ability to like impact our lives.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So like that knowing, right, that there's something here, and this is just getting bigger by engaging it, but it was already there, and it feels so good to run this energy, to feel this expansion, this connection with, you know, whatever it is. And so that's a part of, and speaking to the title, the innocence of childhood, is every baby being, baby piece of grass,
Yep.
baby baby animal, those things are moving from the strong force, that the greening power, the force that makes things erect, that brings things out into manifestation and shares them, with creation, and for consciousness to experience it, and to be reflected back into that energy, is what creates any of this, all of this. It is pumping at all times, and there's moments where the thrusting and the penetrating and the more active engagements with it, like we experience when we have intercourse, for example, or sexual encounters of any kind. That's where it gets more acute, and we make an association that that's what it is, but
Right.
it's not. It's happening actually all the time, and children are super connected to it because they're raw, they're open, it's all a sensory experience. It's all a delicious discovery. Wow. Whoa.
What is this?
Orgasmic and ecstatic is that, and we see them just screaming in ecstasy.
Right, just pure joy, happiness, life force energy.
Yes.
So wonderful. You mentioned a time or two the confusion
Mm.
element. And I think when we're looking at childhood innocence, there's the confusion element and the denial element.
Mm.
And I feel like there are ways in which that arises, it comes up, and like how do we be with that, like as a child growing up, there's a lot of confusion in like what happened, did something happen, and then getting older and actually like going through all of the other processes of discovery. Could you talk a little bit about that a little
Yeah,
bit more?
confusion. Well, as soon as I say that, I can remember my confusion. I mean, it takes me like back to being, 6, 7, 8 years old, maybe even 5 years old, when I had my first kind of crush on someone that I really remember, and being confused. Why do I feel this way? I don't know why I feel this way. I don't know why it's so strong. I don't know why I can't control it, or why it seems I can't control it. I don't know why it doesn't seem to be, there's no markers for it anywhere in my reality. There's no talking about it.
Mhm.
The sense is that it's wrong. That's in the narrative. So even without a mother particularly telling me it's wrong, it's still in my DNA, right? It's been there for quite a while as we've had this stripped from us, intentionally and unintentionally, for thousands of years now, to be not connected to it, because it does make us very, very powerful, realized beings. So there's that, and that's a kind of a big thing for a child who, when we're children, we are connected to more meta things, actually, because we haven't we haven't learned, we haven't been taught, so we just feel this big stuff. We just don't have language for it yet.
Yeah.
And but as we grow up, as we're told by parents, culture, school systems, all the systems and the structures to be these certain ways, do it these certain ways, you must mold, you must achieve, like, these are the things. And we just get further and further away from what was innate, from what was instinctive, from um, accepting the possibility of our natural truth, that arises from within.
Yeah.
um, and our brains do a really, really good job of keeping us safe. So they're made to be able to suppress information. They're made to be able to come up with really good ways to cope and defend.
Mhm.
Um, and but it's, journey of life. We hit the stages where, oh, okay, now the material is ready to come back up again.
Right. Ooh, that's a big one.
And
Yeah.
maybe in that process, we have developed some neurotic tendencies. And maybe in that process, we've, instead of metabolizing these things along the way, most just keeps finding places to sit in the body mind.
Yep.
You know, yeah. So that weighs us down. It weighs us down psychospiritually, but it also weighs us down physically, and our health is impacted by that. Our physical health is a direct manifestation of our inner experience. So yeah, so the time comes at some point. It gets stimulated. It comes up. Certainly gets stimulated every time we're in a relationship. That's
Oh
when
my God, yes.
it's all right there, right in front of us, and that's such a powerful, why relationship is its own, like, growth, personal growth tool, spiritual growth tool. It's just so fast. Like, shows you, and you get to meet yourself, and if you can take it on, with open eyes and with gentleness and compassion for self and another, like it's the best, and you can do it with anyone, and
Yeah.
it'll be transformative and powerful.
But you know what I love is the innocence of what this is, being a child.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, well, like, this is skin, this is wet skin, and, like, this is skin that feels good, and, like, learning and understanding the body and themselves. Like, children and babies don't know. There are instances where babies start masturbating, or they masturbate in the womb, and
Mhm.
there's no taboo around it. Like, they haven't had the shame and the construct put around it. So it's very, very um it's very fascinating to see that innocence be lost,
Yeah.
which fascinating is not a good word.
Well, that's one perspective. There's other ways to feel about it too. Yeah. And it's adults making those choices about whether or not they get to feel innocent about it or not. And so that's just a reflection of where we are unhealed. It's our fear, our shame, our pain, our anger over our own, the things that have happened to us. It's totally valid that we are angry over those things, that we've been hurt, right? So there's an innocence to that too. There's an innocence, and again, many ways of looking at it. But for speaking of individuals, and maybe even to a certain extent societies, it is pretty innocent, because we don't understand what's happened. And so we don't know what we're doing. And we think we're well intended in the wanting to keep others safe. And it's just, it's just that projection of our fear. And so we're externalizing it and trying to control outside of ourselves. But yeah, it's very innocent. And when you were talking about it, I was remembering a movie that I remembered like 2 days ago that was, it's called The Pillow Book. So the reason why I brought it up is because I brought up like an early crush that I got super obsessed with. Ewan McGregor, full, disclosure here. But it was like a thing. I was a little too old to be like printing and laminating pictures of him and giving them to my friends. I was like, I wasn't too old of a teenager for that. But something happened inside of me that was very innocent, and it was a connection. Something about this being resonated my being, and it was so strong. And I was, in such a place where I needed those strong feelings, and especially when they felt kind of good, and I would just, whatever it took to have like more of that, and that goes back to what we're doing in childhood too. We're just wanting to explore, like, what is this? Foot in mouth, that's a thing, and I'm gonna do it. And yeah, I love that you said masturbating even in the womb, like just the raw discovery, and that's so beautiful. So The Pillow Book was a movie, and if anyone looks it up and I get any of these facts wrong, I'm sorry. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it was a Japanese film, and it was about a young woman, and it tracked her growing up, and her mother gave her a pillow book, which was a book that she was supposed to write in the things that turned her on. But as a child, it was more like, the things that excited her, the things she liked, right? The things that brought her alive. This is that sexual energy. But without having to say it like that. And so, she'd put in it, like smelling flowers, and I'm kind of making this up, like what I would do, like rolling around in grass, like sensory things. It just felt really good that intrigued her mystery, but had a somatic component to it that she could feel, right? And that as she got older, it became more erotic. The same idea, but it's now, it can now bring in the context of, the masculine and like what happens there and those interactions but just what turns her being on. And I think it's the idea is that it's meant so that she can stay connected to what really is her aliveness. Yes.
Oh, that's so
And a
beautiful.
sense of that aliveness. And even though later on, yes, it includes a more physical, multiple people version of sexuality, but ultimately it is just this current that's running through her that can find resonance in places, and to note those places of resonance because it's important for your health, which was part of this and why it was done.
Yes. Oh my God. I love the part where you said you're uh energizing my being. Your energy is energizing my being. That was so good. And the life force energy of what you're talking about with the movie, it's being connected to your own pleasure receptors, being connected to your own happiness, because this relationship starts with the self.
Yeah.
That's really where it begins. And I think that's a part we skip over when we talk about, like, again, sex is this very finite little thing. I want to talk a bit about education
Mm-hmm.
and like where that it's a sticky one. I think people are like really tense about it right now, and it's such an important topic. It's critical.
Education very early on or kind of throughout life?
Well, I would say early on, like the different types of sexual education that are appropriate for children, or that might have been
Mm-hmm.
it might have been workable. Um, an example uh, for myself is actually like talking to a child and actually understanding what's
Mm-hmm.
going on for them with like the people around them and how it makes them feel. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is it's a good energy check because
Yeah.
we, like, again, we compartmentalize, we push it down, push it to the side. The brain is a great like problem solving machine. But when you get that out of the way, and you just start looking at those energies like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, I think that's a really big element.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And listening to that, I just think of how much is missed in social emotional learning in school, in early education. And it's a subject, in my opinion, my not so humble opinion, that needs to be there as a fundamental subject. So does play and being outside and being relational. And but as like a topic that we really do need to start practicing and experiencing and learning about and about ourselves in relation to it. Yes, it needs to be there, like in childhood education in elementary schools. um, and it's there in the beginning with sensory interaction and highlighting that for kids, and then all of a sudden it disappears.
Hmm.
It just disappears, and you need to sit in your desk and write on the paper and don't make a mess. And wow,
Yeah.
and I'm actually also a school counselor right now, and I see these little kids, and they're in first grade, and they know they're not being given the chance to be a kid. They know something's wrong. This is not okay. They're adults. They're adultified, parentified already. And
Yep.
to hearing specific pronouncements of "I just want to be a kid" is it points to something. And back to this, the innocence of it. Actually, it's totally natural, totally natural. And we skip this whole huge step, and then as preteens and teenagers tell them, like, show them scary pictures of STDs, and don't have sex at all, and wait till you're married, coming from more religious perspectives. But that is a missing piece, that like the elementary school period before puberty and reaching those stages, where now the sexual energy is running in a more erotic, physically erotic way, and it needs to be acknowledged, tended to, talked about, so that they can learn how to share it consciously and mindfully. And historically, we did this. We initiated the children between like 11, 12, 13 years old into that stage of their life, because
Yeah.
it is important. It's about to change significantly, and they need to know they're seen in that way. It's okay. It's a developmental
Oh,
milestone,
wow.
and
Yeah.
to be empowered in their ownership of it. Take ownership of it, because it is the bridge that leads you into your more adult stages. But actually, the most vital kind of stages of it are when we're really young. So there's a missed thing there too, where we're not actually taking advantage of how much vitality and how much of this power is running through us. And we have health problems later on that are because it wasn't allowed
Mm.
to flow like it could and should. Or it does, but we're doing it in ways that may not be benefiting ourselves and others, or we're just shooting it off and getting rid of it, instead of like cultivating it in the body and being more discerning about how it's shared and received. There's also this idea we have that it's something you project out,
Right.
and that's, well, very one-sided and in many ways. And yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
it's,
it's,
it's yeah.
it's something you have with someone, not something you do to someone, which is
Right.
major.
You could just say that too. That might change a lot.
I also have to say, you just blew my mind. Like, we had talked about the conversation around historically how they've done it in the past, and it didn't click for me until right now, where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, rites of passage. Like, that's where you get your introduction into womanhood, manhood, adulthood, like these different things. And it genuinely is, and it's okay that you behave this way now, which is major. The other thing that I got is how much the sexualization is negative. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's super negative. It's going to happen. It's there. It's in our human nature. It doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be icky or scary. Like, it can be enjoyable and safe.
Yeah. Reflected back like that too, I got this image of just a splitting. It's such cognitive dissonance to have an awareness that this is literally the only way we have our existence. We cannot, we only exist because of, on certain levels, this act that we do, this thing we do gets us here, and yet it's wrong. What? That's difficult to manage inside. It is, and I think leads to more of that confusion, right? And why? Because we develop these sort of neurotices around it too, because of attachment wounds and early childhood wounding or sexual wounding, but it's also intergenerational. So anything that's coming in from before us, and depending on your orientation to the soul, and anything we're bringing in karmically, all of that stuff. So there's a, oh my gosh, I just lost my windshield wiper went.
Oh, we were talking about oh gosh, eroticizing is the last word I have. Neuroses.
The neuroses, yes. So because we don't have any guidance when we're young around it, and we hide these things. We do, things get internalized, and things get really weird in there, and polarities happen. That's the natural thing, and then our sexual nature later is a little bit polarized there, and neuroticized, I think. So the kinks come out in that way, because it's like, oh, okay, well, we had to make these connections, and so this feels really good. And it's an awesome way to kind of almost highlight sexual energy. It like pulls out a chunk of it in a very specific way and hands it back to you, so it's super concentrated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that as bad at all. It just becomes these different sort of windows of opportunity for us to look at, not just the feeling, the multifaceted, infinite ways of feeling cosmoerotic energy, or the divine, or life force energy. But also then we can look at what happened in our innocence. We do get to have a little invitation in to see where some things became cross-wired and connected in ways that we if we wanted to, we could give some attending to for our growth and maturation, and not for the sake of making the kinks go away, because that's just a fun, it's such an awesome way to explore this power, and especially the power of polarities. Which we could have a whole other discussion on that.
I feel like kink is actually like the one natural playground that we have for sexual expression. I think that there's a lot of like the stricture of like, this is what's supposed to happen medically, this is what's supposed to happen legally or ethically, religiously. Like, there's all of these different things, but also just the play of it, and to be able to come to that openly is so beautiful.
Yes.
And kink is a great place to work things out. Like, it's a great place.
All of it. Yes.
So you mentioned this the other day, and it's something that it's important, I believe, to touch on, especially when we're looking at the impact of early childhood sexualization in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, so like perverted sexuality, and then the part that got me, and I was like, oh my God, that explains so much of my life. Intrusive sexual thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It never, and I won't lie, like, hello, I host a podcast on sex. I have intrusive sexual thoughts. Probably all the time. And I think there's these interesting little ways to come to terms with, isn't the right word, but like really synthesizing your childhood experiences with your adult reality.
Mm-hmm.
There's something very pivotal about that. And I remember the first time I saw sex, and then I was trying to see sex every second I could after that. I was like, wait, where is it hiding?
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting. I didn't know a bunch about it, but it was interesting. So I think these are really important things that we can't skip over, both like mostly primarily as we are healing ourselves and as we are raising children.
Mm-hmm.
We have to step away from the denial. We have to step away from the, whatever might be happening that we don't want to talk about, and just be honest and
Mm-hmm.
like very clear. How do we stop this generational trauma?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get there? So anyway, I'm going on and on and on. But you looking at the negative sexualization aspect, and if you could just talk a bit more about how that impacts the, I don't know, mind, brain, emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything that the body experiences as traumatic is going to alter the way the brain forms. And depending on when it happens, there's, different areas of the brain or sectors of functioning that get impacted. And, when various things happen along the way, then it's just, kind of impacting the whole thing, but, in a really complex way. So complex trauma. Um, and I think one of the things that's particular about when there's a sexual component to it, there's a sexual component to it when there's violence, because it's a similar energy. It's or there's let's put it this way: when sexuality or when someone is sexually violated, it has a very similar energy to when someone is violently physically violated.
Mm-hmm.
So, and one teacher I had said, rape and murder, if you were to analyze them just from a vibrational standpoint, it's a very similar frequency because they're
Oh
both
yeah.
taking life force. They're taking the life force away from somebody, violating that life force, right? So, so it's significant, right? So there's a way that those kind of wounds can very easily lead to um, needs to express violently, right? And or do similar things where we take another's right to life in some way. And you know, trauma impacts our ability to make good decisions, think clearly, be in our frontal lobes because we're having trauma responses. We get triggered and then spiral in different directions, and our memory can be impacted. The most significant pieces are impact. Um, um, Impulse control. There we go.
Oh
Impulse
yeah, yeah.
control, emotional regulation, and decision making, clear decision making. And those things lead to all kinds of stuff, right? And so thinking of people in the prison system, for example, and how innocent it is that they didn't have choice. We don't have choice when we are, aggressed upon by others, or situationally and environmentally we're experiencing things, poverty and et cetera, et cetera. Um, that it's not our fault, but it's another place of education that's missing about how trauma impacts us developmentally. And then, to counteract that, we have those uncompleted processes inside of us. And so we will need to complete them. But if we aren't able to, have good decision making and impulse control and emotional regulation, then we're not going to really be able to, you know, um, navigate how to do that without doing it directly how it came in,
Right.
you know and or sort of the opposite of it, if that makes sense. But like I said, these things are really connected with the violent taking of life energy, and a sexual violation. um so and we do that in micro ways too. So there's ways that it gets really big that we could get in really big trouble for, and then there's ways where we're doing it in these micro aggressions internally
Yeah.
with self-abuse, and externally with microaggressions of abuse towards others.
Oh
Yes.
my God. I love that you just said that, because as you were sharing, I was sitting here like, wow, everyone listening, this is a moment to show yourself some compassion and some
Yes.
empathy. Because, like, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm like, oh, is that why this has been such a shit show? Like, there are things that are at play in the background that as I go through my own journey, I'm becoming more aware of. But to actually see the direct correlation between them is just, it's very profound. Thank
Hmm.
you for bringing that in.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things going wrong is what we're doing to ourselves internally, and what not what we are doing to ourselves internally, but our parts, our pieces that were hurt and came up with ways to defend, and have these beliefs about themselves and about life and about others that are really horrible and valid. There's an innocence there, and we shame ourselves to death. And this is all about shame too. This is that really root to life. It's the root to life, like we're talking about. This is sexual energy, and if we don't have a safe connection to that, we don't have the right to live in many ways, and we don't have the right to feel worthy, and we don't have the right to, like, receive love and safety in the way we need to, because we're just, it's there's some in um, it's like we're invalid for that, and so that connection, and even when it's subtle, even when we didn't receive necessarily super traumatic experiences, but the moment we're shut down in something that was actually innocent we're experiencing, whether it be an emotional experience or emotional reaction to something we just experienced, or a desire for something where we want, and because it feels good, and it just takes one time of being told no and being shut down in a way that isn't really holding them, like, I hear you, I know you have this desire, or I know you're having this emotional experience. They can have a huge rippling impact for the rest of our lives, or until we start to look at it and integrate it.
Right. Do our own personal healing. I loved what you said about internal safety. And I know previously you mentioned worthiness.
Hmm.
And it's so real. I mean, that impacts like the kinds of relationships that we can have, and whether or not that's going to be a healthy interaction or not. And it's insidious, it's that, like, the shame in the background. Yeah.
Yeah.
We spoke a little bit about lineage healing, and I actually want to dive into that while we're here in this space. I think one of the things I've shared is, like, these things. Um, we're talking about childhood innocence, and we're talking about sexualization, but in the scope of the realm of molestation, it's an ecosystem.
Hmm.
Like, it's not just one thing is happening over here and it's this defined picture like people want you to think. It's like, no, actually, there's an ecosystem of learning and development and discovery that's happening amongst children.
Yeah.
And hopefully, we're not going to go into any more, but that being said, it comes from the family, the lineage. And so, like, um I've seen that trauma get passed down.
Hmm.
So looking at how we can heal going forward and what we can do to make a difference right now is something I'd love to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this topic, and mostly because I had an early awareness I was going to be doing a lot a lot of this stuff that was transpersonal, that was not even about me personally. And such has been the case. And the more I clear out and also become connected to larger layers and levels, and our inner bigness, um, the easier it is to do it, the harder it is, because it kind of, now you have contact with all of it too. And then there's a place of boundaries. So so the easier, so I think, if we can realize, like you said, that this is not just singular experiences, it's stores in our DNA, we pass it down. That's science, that's scientifically proven now. It's really, really cool. um, then it can take a little bit of the burden off our shoulders, right? And we can go, okay, it happened to them too. It happened to my dad too.
Yeah.
And we need compassion. We need compassion for each other. This is an innocent thing until it's almost like we lose the connection to the innocence when we stay buried in the darkness and stay victimized. So
Yes.
that's what takes away our innocence, I think, it's being that victim. And not to make wrong feeling like a victim, but just the state of what that state is like. Like it feels, when I think about it, it feels like a ripping of what we know should be there. We should be innocent beings. And to be victimized is that moment when we're kind of ripped away from that, and it feels horrible, and we want it to not be that way so much. So something I think that can be mended here is our relationship to the victim, the inner victim, and how we place blame, and how we need others to be responsible. And actually we can see that this is a co-created experience, and we're doing it to each other, and we're passing down unmetabolized, un you know unrealized painful experiences, and the innocence, because that's survival. We've been more in survival mode, and we're in an awakening period now where we're realizing we really do need to look within. We can't keep othering and blaming and making wrong. This is an inside job, so that can change, right? We create the system. We are the micro models of the system, and our relationship with each other in the system is really, really important. And so, holding on to our pain of, whether it be from the parents or however these things happen to us, it denies it. It keeps us away from our innocence, and that's something we really need. It's like a vital component of this whole equation, right? Because it's an opening that allows this life force energy to keep coming through, as if without it we have clamped it down. And opening those channels where we can start looking at it in a systemic perspective. There's forgiveness, there's compassion, but then there's also our time to release our anger and to say, fuck you, dad, and it's hard because we love our caretakers, and we have so much conditioning and narratives around that. It's not okay to hate your parents. I have let myself experience a ton of hate for both of my parents for different reasons, and not as a meta, I'm going to stay that way state, but to allow those parts that had their experience, they were hurt. What happened from that was they didn't get to say how wrong it was, how much they didn't like it, how angry it made them, how
Right.
it actually led to very, very intense places of disgust or repulsion, or resentfulness and outrage and rage, and those are also innocent. So we have to take responsibility for those parts too, sending it down the line. Thanks, ancestors. All right, cool, I got it. Let's get this out. But then it needs to stop. Like, we need to end this. We end the pattern, right? So what do we do to not keep continuing the pattern? Yeah, that's our work. That's our work, to both give voice and space and release and metabolism, do the alchemy, metabolize this stuff, means we got to get it out too. And sometimes it comes in really big expressions of those really natural emotions that got wrapped up in it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I love it. To break the cycle and dismantle the system, we have to be having these conversations. I very much believe in talking to and listening, not just to your children, but the children around you. It's easy to be in a child's place, seen, not heard, do what I say, sit down and shut up, all the things. And to actually just sit and actually have a conversation with a child that's real and emotional, that means something. Because
Yeah.
it's easy, colors, numbers, shapes, but the person is human.
Mhm.
There's something going on in there, and if you want to break the cycle, you can't deny that it
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah. That, so as a school counselor, school therapist, it's well-meaning to do these, teach about mindfulness and how to regulate. Yes, we need to know that. And you know, also here's a beanbag, here's really loud bells, here's pillows, like punch, make really loud sounds. Um, Here's giant pieces of paper and crayons you can destroy. Here's balls of paper, you can stomp on them, rip them up. Because the energy just needs to move. It's just energy in motion, right? Like we've heard that so many times. But what are emotions? It is chemistry. It is what creates life. Like it's so needed, but we got to keep it moving. And if you skip a step and go too quickly into regulation, you've now just suppressed it, pushed it down for moving on with the moment. And we do need those tools too. But first, it's the being with it. Like you said, be with them, hear them.
Um, mm, you mentioned personal alchemy. And we also have talked a little bit about creating wholeness.
Mhm.
So let's look at that a bit in like that journey, personal
Mhm.
healing. Oh, we're here. um, oh, there you are.
Here. Yes, computer, you're allowed to have your own alchemical experiences too. Okay, let's die and be reborn like the phoenix right now. Here we go, fresh. Well, the word that comes up is kundalini. Kundalini energy. So if you're familiar, you might have the image of like a fire or a coiled in the base of the spine, awakening at some point in life. Um, and if you think about it, like a cook thinks about it, a chef. So when you're in the kitchen, you're cooking. You need the container, which is our awareness. Actually, our awareness is that container. We can hold awareness. So we have to know what's in this container, and then we're going to put in the things that we want to transform, right? And then we have to give it a fuel, right? So we give it this energy, we give it this life force energy, and that's that fire underneath it. And if you're from teachings, there's a few different ways of thinking about it this way, but in this moment I like this metaphor. And so with the spaciousness of, okay, we're going to hold it in our awareness, we're going to give it this energy, then inside of that pot things can start to break down. But in their breaking down, they get kind of so maybe things get black in the process. There's the blackening. That's a part of the stage. Like there's maybe some things get burned, but we scrape the goodie off the pan. It actually turns out to be the best part. Or there's it's not bad, but we gotta wait. We can't be too hasty. Like we really have to give it time. You want to caramelize something, you got to give it time, and it's going to go through its processes. And there's so many micro moments in a day actually where this is happening, and we're not we don't really perceive. We can inhale and an exhale. We have done this process and transferred over old cells. They're dying, they're being flushed out, we're going to grow new ones. Like that's happening over and over and over again on every level. And then there's our moments when we're in grief, when we have contacted deep material. And so this alchemy, the point of alchemy, if you understand it, even myth, is that you're creating gold from lead. So how do we do that? So this is our lead. this is our good, this is our working material, or this black brick, whatever. So, but if we put it in the pot, we can hold it. Okay, we can make space for this. We can add our energy to it. And let's see what happens. And the process really starts to take care of itself at that point. I think we can get stuck because it's uncomfortable and we want to start pulling back. We get scared because what gets revealed might be pretty scary looking at first. The monsters that had to become monsters that we've done so well at keeping in their closets and under the baseboards and wherever, like they come out and they look just like that. and yeah, man, and it's like it's not good, and that is the moment. That is the moment when you open up more, you breathe more, you feel the fire as just pure and raw energy. If we get real scientific about it too, emotions are physio. Stories about them are what make them into something else. But it's a chemical physiological experience. It has sensations, and so we can open up in that way too, and just continue to hold the boiling pot while these things are coming in. We do it over and over, though. There's not a one time we do it. You do it over and over, and you get better and better at it. And it becomes more enjoyable. And then we can, just like we're in the kink spaces in sexuality and the energy is really big, pain don't really feel like pain no more.
That's a fair point.
It's just energy. It's good. And like, wow, the capacities we have. Women push these giant melons through tiny spaces, and and there's our capacity for pain tolerance actually pretty big. It's a mental thing. It's our stories around it. It's the shame, it's the fear, it's anything that clamps down our channels, our energy channels, So, as a practice of like, how can we go into these moments? Sometimes they happen in the day, sometimes they're happening in just different periods in life when big things happen. They happen in relationships all the time. It's an opportunity. But there's the tricky parts. It's tricky to, when you're triggered and you're overwhelmed, to stay with it, and to not want to change it, or to be gentle about how you do that. And especially when it's with another, it's really hard. It is really hard. So, this is another part of where I love this work, is that in relationship, there's ways we can learn to like hold each other's container, be the fire hydrant, if necessary. I'm just standing here at the fire hydrant, but you're good, I'm watching. Okay. I got you if anything bad happens. Yeah, I don't know if that completely answered your question, but I think what I'm getting to is just this over and over again. The story of the phoenix, the metaphor there is that it happens over and over again. And that's true. It's already happening over and over again. That the possibility for just profound mythic level transformation and living in general is just exponential. It goes out the roof. And it's mind-blowing how quickly we can go from just having things happen to us that are crazy and we're trying to make sense of it, to like, wow, bring it on, yes, because the way you grow your body, your mind, your spirit, just, they have so much things, hold things, see beauty in everything, feel more. You feel more, but it's the way that becomes so exquisite and wanted and safe,
Wow. Katherine, thank you so much. This has been such a powerful conversation, and I'm so grateful. We are really tight on time, but please take a minute, share more about your work, what you
Mm.
do and how people can find you.
Yeah, well, so I am a practicing therapist in the Bay Area of California, and I'm here in San Jose. So I have offices here, but I also do online work with anyone, anywhere. And there's a couple of different tracks of my work. There's clinical therapy and there's healing arts work, and they're not so different. But the places where they are different is in the healing arts work, we can go a little more powerfully into places of cultivating sexual energy, um, doing more energy based practices, medicine practices, and we can do that one on one. We can do that with couples. Um, it can get yeah, very, 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 very intimate and nuanced. Of course, that can happen in the therapy container too. I'm very experiential. I am experimental, playful. I'm trained in what's called the process model, which is just whatever's arising right now. That's our window, and let's go in. Let's fiddle with it. Let's play with it. Let's see what it opens. And I love it because it everything doesn't matter what door you take. It's going to lead you to whatever it is you're trying to find, right? Um, and I love a life that has just led me directly here. I'm just in the bosom of my heart in this and closer to their innocence and their cosmoerotic nature, and being able to about what that is, and even with its specialness, that's even better. And best as well. And I'm very, very passionate about this work. And I do psychedelic integration. Two doctors do ketamine therapy, and I do integration work for them, and have myself a ton of experience and initiations. And so I do that work as well. And yeah, so my website is Katharine Lee Therapy Arts, and my Instagram, which I love to write and I love to take pictures, turn me on like my pillow book, is
I'm gonna start one. Okay.
yeah, right, yeah. So that's my Instagram handle, Lady Katharine Love. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Um,
Thank you.
yes. Oh, this is wonderful. I'm so glad that you were on the show having this powerful, pivotal, important conversation. I mean, we just need more topics like this, and thank you for bringing it and making it available.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nika. I love everything you do. I love how you feel. I put you in my pillow book. I just love being in your space, and I've so enjoyed, getting more connected through this. And I would love to talk anytime. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. All right, everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us today. This is the ItCast Real Talk on Sex, our community outreach podcast that increases diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. We have some events coming up. Right? We have some events coming up later this month. On May 27th, you can join me for Releasing Sexual Shame, A Pathway to Freedom. It's one of my signature workshops I'll be offering on Saturday the 27th from 1 to 4 p.m., all online. Please check out the link and join us. Also, June is National Pride Month, and we want to make sure that you can celebrate wherever you are. So please look up any festivities near you. And if you are in the San Francisco Bay Area, Pride Weekend is June 23rd through the 25th. Trans March on Friday night, the 23rd. You can check them out in the Castro. The Pink Saturday Dyke March, I'm actually sorry, Dolores Park. Pink Saturday Dyke March also at Dolores Park on Saturday, June 24th, and then the official parade on June 25th, Sunday morning. So, also, we have our Releasing Sexual Shame workshop coming up again in July. If you can't make this one, it's going to be both online and in person, hosted by Ethology.
Mm.
And you can find their work at ethologycollective.org. Join our Sunday brunch and our freedom support group happening every week. The variety show and the conversation to just come and be empowered and share and get what you need. Please, please, please join us. We love having you there. You can get your one-on-one coaching with me by booking a free connection session following the QR code. There it is. And I want to know how I can serve you. Ask us anything. Thank you, everyone who joined and listened today and really held the space. It is beautiful. If there's ever anything that you want to know, you want to share, you want to engage in our conversation, hear from you. You can click the link in the comments below, get access to our bonus content on Patreon, learn more about our work at theitcast.com, and subscribe to this YouTube channel and share with your community. Thank you so much, and we will see you here next week.